So you're looking at getting certified in cybersecurity, whether it's your first cybersecurity certification or certification overall, as a matter of fact, or whether you're just looking to obtain a new certification. And you're looking at the new ISC² Certified in Cybersecurity certification. But you don't know where to start. You don't know what resources you need. You don't know what it takes to actually pass the exam. Well, don't worry. We're going to go through this today in detail. I've just taken the ISC² Certified in Cybersecurity exam, and I'll explain my reasons in this video as to why I did that, even though I'm not new to the cybersecurity industry or profession. But first, let's delve into how you can actually get started with this ISC² Certified in Cybersecurity. So first, what you want to do is you want to head over to the ISC² website. So that's ISC2.org. And then once you're on the main page, you want to navigate to Get Certified. And then you can see there you have an option for the Certified in Cybersecurity. We want to click that, and then you'll be brought to this page, which gives you a little bit more information about the certification and the pathway to success, if you like. Now, currently the ISC² certification and the content is free. So I really urge anybody that's looking at getting a new certification or their first cybersecurity certification to really jump on this training and try and get this certification. I really do recommend it, especially after I've just been through the exam as well. It's suitable for any current IT professional, anybody that's recently graduated or looking at transitioning to the cybersecurity field. So how do you get access to the free content? Well, to do this, we want to click choose your training path, and then you'll be brought to this page with 3 different options. So you now have the options to either go through the self-paced training plus the exam. You've got the self-paced training plus the exam plus a couple of extras, which we'll look at. And then you've got the live online plus exam plus extras as well. And you can see that with the last 2, there's costs associated with both. However, if you're just looking at getting the free content and having a shot at the exam for free, then we really want to focus on this first column here, which is a self-paced training plus the exam. And we can see currently the price is $0 US. And what you're going to do with what you're going to get with this is actually the self-paced training content, and you're going to get a shot at the exam, the certification exam, for free, which is where you'll go to a test center such as a Pearson VUE, and you'll actually sit down and take this exam. So you can see some more options here to help you decide which one is the best for you. But what I can say based on my experience is I went with the self-paced option, which was free, got access to the self-paced content for free, as well as the pre and post course assessments, as you can see here, and a number of different things there as well. And I also used additional resources where required to just firm up on some of the knowledge that I thought might be important for this certification. And we'll touch on that as we get through this. So once you have decided if you want to choose the self-paced plus the exam, assuming you do, you would just register now, and you would essentially become an ISC² candidate. Now, fast forward, when you are registered and you sign in, you can see I now have access to the self-paced content. So you can see the content is broken down into chapters, and each chapter basically covers a domain, if you like. So we can see we've got five different chapters really, and then at the end we have a course conclusion, which has a post-course assessment, and then at the start you also have a pre-course assessment. And these are really good because it allows you to get a baseline as to where your knowledge is at before actually going through the content, And then once you've been through the content, taking the post-course assessment, you can also gauge where your knowledge is at. Now, you do need to go through all of these different sections because you will be required to complete them before you can actually go and get the code and register for the exam. More information on that on there. Anyway, once you are been through the content, you have the ability to take a look at your progress. So you can see here, this is my history, if you like. And then you also can, once you've completed each section, you also get a badge. And then once you've completed each domain, you get the certificate, which you can see here. You can generate a certificate there. Now, that's not the certification certificate. That's just basically saying that you've completed the course and you get a nice certificate to show off if you choose. So when you're ready to take the exam and you've got the exam code so that you can register for the exam for free, you want to head over to pearsonview.com and you want to start by typing in ISC². And then you want to sign into your account. If you've not got an account, you will need to create one. Once you're signed into your account, you will then have the option to schedule your exam. And then once your exam is scheduled and you've applied that discount code, you will see that you have a schedule or the exam and the test date showing there as well. So make sure you do go through that properly and you do read all the T's and C's around rescheduling and cancelling and all that good stuff as well, because you don't really want to find yourself in a position where you miss out on the exam because you haven't read all the terms and conditions. In my particular case, because I've just taken the exam, you can see I took the exam yesterday on the 24th of January, and we can see the exam code, which is CC for Certified in Cybersecurity, and the exam name, and you can see the status. So once you've completed that, you will see that in exam history. All right, so let's discuss now. We've been through the process of how to register and get started and access to the content for the ISC² Certified in Cybersecurity. Now, I just want to speak about the exam itself and how to prepare best in order to pass this exam. After passing this exam yesterday, I had quite a lot of people reach out to me and ask, one, what was my motivation for doing it when I'm already a cybersecurity professional, and two, what resources did I use in order to pass the exam? So I want to cover both of those topics here today. So starting with the reasons for actually taking the ISC² Certified in Cybersecurity certification exam. I decided to take this exam for a couple of reasons. One, it was currently free to take, and I was recommending, based on what I saw around the content, I was recommending this to people that were looking at getting into cybersecurity, or at least looking at getting some knowledge in that domain. With it being a new certification and being free, I thought it was a perfect opportunity to go through the content, not only recommend the content based on what I saw from a information sheet, but actually go through the content to see whether it was actually worth doing for anybody that's getting into cybersecurity or anybody that's looking for a new certification for free. So I took advantage of that and I got access to the self-paced training, as we've just seen, and I went through that self-paced training. We're going to speak a little bit more about the training itself a little bit later on, but that was one of my reasons. The second reason was because I'm currently studying for my CISSP, which is a more advanced certification for those that don't know that ISC² offer. And having seen the self-paced training content and some of the domains that are covered on there. I thought it was a perfect match with some of the domains that are covered in the CISSP. So I decided to hold myself accountable and give myself a little bit of a kickstart with the CISSP and go through this content and schedule the exam so that I had no choice but to actually go through and start some of the domains that are covered in the CISSP. Now, granted, the ISC² Certified in Cybersecurity certification is an entry-level certification. So the detail that you go into on this certification is foundational. But I actually used the self-paced training content and then referred to the CISSP study guide, or one of those, to delve a little bit deeper into some of the detail that I needed to know for the CISSP and also potentially for this exam as well. So that was my reasons for actually going through and getting this certification. Now, in terms of resources and what I used, it's pretty evident by now that you all know I use the self-paced training, and I've just alluded to using the CISSP or one of those CISSP certification guides. And the exact one, and I will share it in the link for you as well if you choose to buy this book, whether it's because you want to get greater knowledge or whether you're actually doing the same and going for the CISSP as well. I will share this in the video description. So that's the book there that I'm using at the moment to go through and learn the different domains for the CISSP. And some of the domains in there map directly to, as I said, the domains that were covered in the Certified in Cybersecurity certification. So for me, it was a perfect opportunity, as I said, to be able to kickstart my journey on the CISSP and at the same time be able to go through this content and share with you whether, as a cybersecurity professional, I think this certification is worthwhile. Quick summary: I use the self-paced training content that you saw a little earlier to go through that content, and I also used snippets out of the CISSP certification book as well that I've just showed you, and again I'll share that link in the video description a little while later. On top of that, what I would say worked to my advantage as well is actually having some industry experience already. Now, given that this is a entry-level cybersecurity certification primarily aimed at those looking at upskilling and getting into cybersecurity, not everybody's going to have real world experience or have experience in the tech field as it stands anyway. So when I was taking this certification exam at a Pearson VUE Test Center yesterday, as I was going through the questions, and by the way, there's a total of 100 questions on the exam that you do need to go through, and you don't have the ability to mark those questions that you don't know and go back to. Once you've answered it and press next, you have submitted your answer for that question and you cannot go back. So that's another important thing. But we'll touch a little bit on the exam dynamics a little bit later on. But coming back to what I was saying about it being an entry-level certification. As I was going through the certification exam yesterday, I was answering questions and at the same time trying to put myself in the mindset of somebody that was new to cybersecurity and somebody that was new to the tech industry as a whole. And the reason I did that was because I wanted to try and feel what somebody in that position would be going through. And I've been in that position before. Everybody starts off in that position, and I tried to put myself in that position where and when I felt like I needed to, just so that I could really understand how somebody in that position, as I say, would be feeling. And I must say, going through those exam questions, some of them were surprisingly challenging in the way that they were worded. So not necessarily the depth of knowledge required, but you really do have to read the question to understand what it is they're asking for or looking for in terms of the answer. Now, maybe I thought this because I am really accustomed to Cisco certification exams and Microsoft exams and the way that those questions are worded. But one thing I have noticed is that the ISC² questions are totally different to those two. So for a moment, I was thinking, well, is it because of that, or is it genuinely meant to be a little bit more challenging than I thought it would be? Nevertheless, obviously, I got through it and I passed the exam, and I had quite a lot of time left. I really wanted to examine the questions as I was kind of going through them to see how, on the other side, as a professional already, someone would find those questions. And like I say, some of them I thought were pretty challenging in the way that they were asked and what they were looking for in terms of answers. So, do watch out for that. And as somebody, I really wanted to say this because as somebody that's new or trying to get into cybersecurity, I kind of fast track back to the self-paced training, and let's leave the CISSP book out of the mix for the moment. I track back to going through the self-paced training, and after taking the exam, I can say that it's probably, if you really want the best chance of passing this exam the first time, and granted, if you do take the self-paced training and the exam for free, you don't get the opportunity to take the exam the second time around for free. You will have to pay for it, unless you get one of the other options that I showed you. You really need to make sure you understand the content in greater detail than what is given in the self-paced training, because you will need to not necessarily go into the depth of the technologies and what is being asked or the information that's given to you, but you will need to make sure you understand certain concepts that are covered in each of those domains. So again, as I finished the exam and I was on my way home, I was thinking about this a little bit more, and I thought, well, how can somebody best prepare for this exam? And I concluded that the self-paced training is simply not enough if you really want to have the best chance of passing, because I had the self-paced training, I also had the access to the CSSP book, and I also have real-world industry experience as well as other certifications. So I really wanted to discuss this because I want to, based on taking this exam and recommending this exam, I want to make sure you have the best chance in passing this exam. So what do you need? That is the golden question. What do I feel you need in order to pass this exam the first time? Now, obviously, you need to put in the work. If you don't put in the work and you don't make the effort to understand the concepts and the topics, the information I am about to give you is worthless, because you're going to fail the exam anyway. So you need to want it. If you don't want it and you don't put in the work and the effort, you're not going to pass this certification exam. Now, what I'm about to say is focused, or is directed primarily to those looking at getting into cybersecurity and maybe don't have that cybersecurity knowledge because you're transitioning from a total different career, or maybe you have just started in cybersecurity but you haven't got a certification yet, so you're looking at getting this one. So in order to pass this exam, or have the best chance of passing this exam the first time round, definitely, number one, the self-paced training that ISC² offer you is good training. They do include a lot of good detail in there. They do give you a nice baseline required for somebody looking at getting into cybersecurity, more around information security, but nevertheless, cybersecurity is an umbrella. It covers security principles, so you can see that we have information around security concepts, risk management, we've got security controls, we've got some information around governance, we've got information around the ISC² Code of Ethics, we've got incident response and business continuity, we've got access control concepts, we've got network security. So for those that are new to not only cybersecurity but the tech world as well, this particular chapter will be interesting for you because you have concepts around networking as well. So not only purely security, but understanding concepts around networking. You've got information around cybersecurity threats as well, and security infrastructure, and then you've got information around security operations, so hardening systems and best practices and policies around security awareness and all that good stuff there. So definitely the self-paced training that ISC² provide is very useful, and I urge you to start off there. Secondly, if you are looking at going for a certification such as the CISSP in the near future, or maybe you're somebody that already has industry experience and is going for the CISSP like I am, then again I recommend getting a CISSP certification book, because a lot of the domains covered in this exam map to the CISSP, and the CISSP being a more advanced certification will obviously break down a lot of what you see on the Certified in Cybersecurity certification in more detail. So if you are looking at going for the CISSP, or you know what, even if you're not looking at going for the CISSP in the near future, if you have a library where you can access the CISSP book and not necessarily buy it, or if you know somebody that has a CISSP book, or if you want to buy the CISSP book, then I recommend getting that book in order to expand on some of the topics that are covered at a more foundational level in the Certified in Cybersecurity certification. And again, this is because I want to give you as much information as to what I feel is the best way of being able to pass this exam the first time round, and not only just pass the exam, but get a very good understanding of cybersecurity concepts and the industry as a whole, and give you the best opportunity to start out really in the industry. So if you can get the book, a certification book around the CISSP, then please do. Again, even if you have access to ebooks and you can access the CISSP certification guide on there, then I urge you to do that. Another thing I feel that is important is, and I always say this regardless of who I speak to that is looking at getting into cybersecurity, is networking. Now you'll see on my YouTube channel, I've got videos around where you should start if you want to get into cybersecurity. And my stance does not change on this. I feel as though you need to understand networking concepts, networking fundamentals. And why is that? Because networking is the foundation of any area in tech that you look at. You know, you need to understand IP addressing, different classes of IP addressing, IPv4 versus IPv6, what are the differences there, how computers communicate on the network, etc., etc. Now, some of these topics are covered in fine detail within the self-paced training. However, again, you're looking at getting into the cybersecurity industry, so you're going to need to know this detail at a greater level than what is in this certification, in my opinion. So where should you start? Now, I would recommend, even though you're going for the Certified in Cybersecurity certification, I would recommend you start to look at the Cisco CCNA content. Now, the Cisco CCNA is well, it's actually Cisco Certified Network Associate. It's a certification from Cisco, and it's a foundational, not only networking certification, although it is primarily networking, it does touch on other concepts as well around security and programmability, etc., etc. Again, I've done a video on the CCNA certification on my YouTube channel, so if you've not seen that, please do go take a look at that, because we do look at the blueprint in there as well. But I recommend this because I think, based on my experience and based on the domains and the weights of the blueprint for the Certified in Cybersecurity exam, I think this information is going to be very useful for you if you know it in greater detail and what is in the self-paced content. Now, it sounds like a lot of work, and it is. You know, you want to be a cybersecurity professional. It's not going to be a walk in the park, especially if you want to understand concepts and topics and have the best chance of passing this certification. So I recommend you either get access to a CCNA certification guide, whether it's a physical copy or whether it's an ebook. And when you go through the self-paced training and you get to the network security domain, make sure you read that domain. But when you actually get to the networking part, maybe then you can laterally move to the CCNA certification guide, just to understand some of the topics in greater detail there. Two benefits to this. One, you're going to understand the content in greater detail, and it's going to give you a better chance of passing this certification exam on the first attempt. And two, once you have passed this certification, you can then look at actually taking the CCNA certification, which again is a great certification, a great foundation for you to start out and have with regards to networking and display on your CV and to companies as well. So you're kind of killing two birds with one stone. You're starting to not only look at cybersecurity and get this certification because you want to get into the cybersecurity industry, but you're also going to get that foundational knowledge by taking that CCNA certification exam after, or at least going through the content to get a greater understanding of how networks work and the foundational knowledge that I believe you need. And as I said, this is going to give you a greater chance in passing this certification exam the first time round. And lastly, if you have any sort of work experience, whether that's around actually working on projects in tech or around information security, then this information is going to be useful for you as well. And no doubt when you go through the self-paced training, you'll start to relate to maybe some of the experiences that you've had in the industry as well. If you don't have that experience, that is totally fine, because as I said, this is an entry-level cybersecurity certification, so no prior experience is required. But what I am saying is that if you do have that experience, it will make your life easier going through this certification. And that's it. So all I'm saying in a nutshell is self-paced training that's offered by ISC², complemented by, if you can, a CISSP certification guide and some CCNA training as well. And I believe that's going to give you a nice chance of passing this exam the first time. So you've read all this content, you feel like you've got an understanding now of what is required in this exam. You've seen the blueprint, so you know the weightings of each section and potentially where you're going to be asked questions. That's great. So how do you test your knowledge? Well, there's a few ways you can do this. So we discussed towards the start of the video, we discussed the pre-course and post-course assessment that you can go through in the self-paced training. That is great. I would definitely recommend that. There is also flashcards contained within the self-paced training. I would also recommend that as well. What I will say is if you do have the CCNA certification guide and maybe CISSP guide, maybe try some of those questions in there as well, just to gauge your knowledge and see where you're at with some of the domains that are covered on the Certified in Cybersecurity. And you may surprise yourself. You may think, you may actually get a lot more questions right than you actually thought you would have done. And you can also do that pre and post, so you could also follow the same process of the self-paced training. So you can test yourself at the start before you maybe read a chapter, and then test yourself at the end as well. Now, it is worth pointing out that each domain in the self-paced training does have knowledge checks, which are good kind of checkpoints to test your knowledge and what you've just learned as well. So if you do get certain things wrong, then you can just quickly go back and reread something to understand it again, which is great. What I will say, and what I've seen online and across YouTube as well, are YouTube channels saying certified in cybersecurity, real exam questions, and other bits and pieces across the web that are in relation to the certified in cybersecurity. I urge you to stay away from any of those types of videos or information out there. Now, the reason I say that is, one, because if you're new to cybersecurity or the tech industry as a whole, you may not have come across the word dumps. Now, dumps are basically real exam questions, and it's considered cheating. So stay away from this. That's first and foremost. Don't even entertain it. Secondly, even if you do, look at some of these things and you stumble across these by mistake. What tends to happen is that you'll start to read and look at the answers to some of these questions, and one, you'll think that these questions are covered on the exam, which probably they're not going to be, because these people are just trying to get the view count up, etc, etc. But two, some of the information that's given in terms of answers is actually incorrect, and this will start to poison your brain and start to have you thinking different in terms of the knowledge that to what you think is the right way, based on what these people are trying to get out there on the internet. Stay away from this content. It's not going to be useful for you. It's not going to help you, and ultimately it's not the way to move forward and to try to take this exam. I've just given you the blueprint in terms of what you need to pass this certification exam, so please do take that information as you see fit. But I feel as though, based on my knowledge in the industry, I feel as though, based on my knowledge from taking this exam after going through the content, that this is the best way to prepare for this certification exam and give you the best chance of being able to pass this certification. As I said at the start, it does require you to put work in, time and effort, and to understand each of the concepts before moving on to the other topics, and not don't rush through each of the topics just to get through the content, because it's not going to help you. Time and effort, and make sure you understand the topics before you move on to the next section. So hopefully that really helps, and please do keep me updated if you are on that journey as well, and let me know if you did follow my method and whether you found it helped or not. Now, obviously, it probably won't work for everybody, because everybody is not going to want to consume as much information as I am trying to tell you to consume. Others may think the self-paced training is just enough to get through, and that's fine. Everybody works in different ways. Everybody has different ways of learning. That's fine. Now, lastly, on the exam, what I would say is, when you feel confident, when you feel comfortable, and when you've gone through all the content, schedule the exam. As I said, the exam is currently free. So once you've gone through the self-paced training content and you've got the exam code, schedule the exam on Pearson VUE, put in that code, and you'll see that the value of the certification goes to 0, and then you basically got the certification exam for free. And the reason I'm saying schedule the exam is because, especially, I kind of cast my mind back to when I was new to the tech world and taking my first certification. You will never feel ready. You will always feel like you are missing something, or you just can't retain a certain bit of information. And that's normal for certifications. Just schedule the exam and make sure you read the T's and C's of the exam with regards to reschedule, changing, cancelling, etc. Because this is going to give you something to work towards. This is going to make sure that you are accountable for the studying that you do before you take this exam. You're never going to feel ready. You're always going to feel nervous, especially if it's your first certification exam. I mean, I cast back to when I did my first certification exam and my nerves were through the roof. It was absolutely ridiculous. That is normal. You know, just take deep breaths. Trust the process, trust in the fact that you've been through the content and you have tested and are confident that you know each of the domains, and just do the exam, take the exam. And all being well, you pass the first time. But what I will say is, if you don't pass the first time, it's not the end of the world. Yes, the exam might not be free the second time round, but at least you know you have learned things that you did not know before, and you've come a long way. So all you need to do is brush up on some of the areas that you were unsure of again, and then go for that exam again when you feel confident. But always hold yourself accountable by getting a date in the calendar. Now, there is 100 questions in the exam to go through. It may seem like a lot, especially if it's your first time. You do get 2 hours to answer these questions as well. So do take your time to go through the questions and answer most appropriate based on the question that's being asked. Obviously, I am not permitted to speak about the exam in detail and what to expect on the exam, but just look at the blueprint, look at the weightings to each section, and just make sure you understand the content. That's going to be the best way for you to be able to pass this exam. Don't spend too long on each question, because obviously 2 hours seems like a lot, but that time will soon go if you are spending so much time on 1 or 2 questions. If you do struggle with a question, try to use the process of elimination to eliminate the potential answers that you know are not correct, and then if it's a choice between 2, pick the most appropriate one that you feel is correct. I feel that would be the best approach for you to do. As I said, you cannot go back once you press next. Once you go to the next question, you can't flag questions to go back to them later. Once you press next, you do have to just keep moving forward. And then once you get to the end, you end the exam, you finish the exam, you will be given a sheet that will tell you whether you have passed or failed. And all being well, you've passed. I hope this information has been useful for you. I really wanted to do this video because so many people have reached out to me asking what I did to prepare and the best chance to pass. As I said, everybody is different, but I am sharing based on my experience what I feel is the best way to pass this certification exam. Please do keep me updated, and good luck and happy studying.